All right, so today we're diving into some pretty eye-opening stuff from recent research on how digital overstimulation is messing with our brains. We're talking about brain rot and its impact on attention spans, the ways social media is affecting younger generations like Gen Alpha and Gen Z, and the sneaky role of the attention economy in creating addiction through things like dopamine maximization. It's all based on solid sources like studies from PMC and articles from places like the American Psychological Association, so we'll break it down step by step without any hype. Let me think. We've got 3 main stories to cover, and by the end, you might just rethink your screen time habits.
Wow, that sounds intense, Sam. I mean, brain rot? That's a term I've heard thrown around, but I never really dug into what it means. So, from what I remember of these sources, it's not just about feeling foggy, it's linked to actual cognitive issues. Like, the PMC articles talk about emotional desensitization and cognitive overload from too much digital content. So, let's start there and unpack how this overstimulation is shortening our attention spans. Wait, hold on. Can you explain what exactly brain rot entails based on that research?
Absolutely, Jordan. And yeah, it's fascinating how these studies from PMC and other sources paint a clear picture. So, brain rot, as described in articles like the one from MDPI, basically stems from overuse of social media and digital platforms, leading to things like emotional desensitization and cognitive overload. For instance, the findings reveal that excessive screen time can exacerbate cognitive decline, as mentioned in the Inspire Health Network piece, where experts like Dr. Lakowski note it might speed up age-related issues even in younger people. Let me think about how to put this simply. It's like your brain is getting bombarded with constant stimuli, so it struggles to focus, and that's backed by evidence of negative self-concept and behavioral changes. That's really concerning, especially when you consider how this ties into shorter attention spans overall.
Okay, that's wild, Sam. So if brain rot is causing this cognitive overload, does that mean people are just zoning out more easily these days?
I was reading through the NIH PMC summary, and it mentions how excessive exposure undermines emotional well-being, which makes me wonder about real-world examples like how someone might scroll endlessly and feel mentally drained.
Wait, really? Is there any data on how this plays out in daily life, or is it mostly theoretical?
That's actually fascinating because I feel like I've experienced that myself. So let's dig into the implications for attention spans.
You're spot on there, Jordan. And it's not just theoretical. The sources like the one from PMC highlight how brain rot leads to practical problems, such as reduced ability to concentrate due to that constant digital barrage. For example, the American Psychological Association article points out that young brains are especially vulnerable, which could mean Gen Z and Alpha are seeing faster declines in attention because of this overstimulation. So basically, it's like trying to juggle too many balls at once. Your brain gets overwhelmed, and studies show this results in emotional desensitization, making it harder to engage deeply with anything. Oh, that's actually really interesting when you think about how this might be changing the way we learn or work. Don't you agree?
I totally agree, and that's making me think about how this affects kids today. From the Mayo Clinic source, we know social media has mixed effects on mental health, but for Gen Alpha and Gen Z, it's probably amplifying these brain rot issues. The Sai Chi blog mentions social media addiction messing with sleep patterns, which I guess ties into attention problems since poor sleep can make focusing even harder.
Wait, hold on. Can we talk more about that generational angle?
Like, is there evidence that these groups are more at risk, and how does that play into their daily habits without us overhyping it?
Exactly, Jordan. And let's not gloss over that. The sources are clear that younger generations are particularly vulnerable, as per the APA's piece on why young brains succumb to social media. So for Gen Alpha and Gen Z, the interplay of altered brain physiology and addictive content, like what's discussed in the PMC article on social media algorithms, can lead to addiction that disrupts sleep and overall well-being.
I was going to say it's not about blaming them, but rather understanding how these platforms exploit developmental stages, resulting in things like cognitive overload that we've already touched on.
That's genuinely concerning because, as the Mayo Clinic notes, this can vary from teen to teen, but the common thread is unhealthy mental health effects from constant notifications and doom scrolling.
That's so true, Sam. And speaking of those algorithms, I think that's where things get really sneaky, like in the humane tech explanation of the attention economy. From what I gathered in the Psychology Zine article, it's all about capturing our attention through dopamine loops, which essentially turn browsing into something addictive. Wait, no way. So algorithms are designed to maximize these loops as per analytics insight, promoting irrational immersion that feels a lot like getting hooked on something you can't put down. Okay, that's actually really eye-opening. How do these mechanisms work exactly, and what's the bigger impact on our behavior?
Oh, you're right on the money with that, Jordan. And it's fascinating how the attention economy, as outlined in sources like the one from Human Science Array, hijacks our focus through tactics like infinite scroll to keep us engaged. Basically, algorithms optimize content to trigger dopamine responses, creating a feedback loop that the PMC studies link directly to digital addiction, which in turn affects mental health through constant notifications and doom scrolling. Let me think, it's similar to how companies design apps to hold your attention, as described in the Humane Tech piece, leading to skewed perceptions of the world and undermined relationships. That's wild because without proper regulation, this could keep escalating, making it harder for people to disconnect and maintain their well being.
Yeah, that's absolutely mind-blowing, Sam. And tying it back to the sources, the Harvard Petrie-Flum article calls addictive algorithms a public health challenge, which makes me wonder if there's any hope for change, like through policies or awareness.
I mean, with all this talk of digital dopamine and how it reshapes behavior, as in the Analytics Insights summary, it's clear we're in a cycle that's hard to break. So, what do you think the long term effects could be, and how can listeners start protecting themselves from this stuff? That's really got me thinking about my own habits now.
It's a great question, Jordan. And from the sources, we see that the mental health consequences are serious, with things like doom scrolling linked to emotional desensitization and cognitive decline in multiple PMC articles. To combat this, people could start by limiting screen time, as implied in the various studies, and maybe advocating for better digital wellness practices. Overall, it's about recognizing how the attention economy exploits our vulnerabilities. So, wrapping up our discussion, I think the key takeaway is that while technology has benefits, unchecked digital overstimulation is a real threat to our attention and generational health. Thanks for chatting through this with me. It's been eye-opening.
No kidding, Sam. We've covered brain rot's impact on attention, the risks for younger generations, and the addictive nature of algorithms, all straight from reliable sources like PMC and APA. It's clear we need to be more mindful. So, listeners, take a moment to reflect on your own digital use. All right, that's a wrap for this deep dive. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time with more insights.
Stay curious out there.